8 Israeli soldiers were detained. They're being accused of sexually abusing a detainee, a Palestinian terrorist detainee. Um, and so they've been arrested. There have been protests, including protesters breaking into the military base in which these soldiers are held, demanding that Israel focus its war efforts on the enemy rather than on its own soldiers. And yeah, this has made the headlines in Israel. And unlike many things that make the headlines in Israel, this also has made the headlines outside of Israel because it's an opportunity to look at Israel as point out Israel doing uh, things that are considered widely considered wrong, point out that there's internal turmoil in Israel and so on. Now, a couple of days ago on this show, I got in trouble with some of our audience when I said that if Israeli soldiers did what they're accused of, I don't care. So I'm going to elaborate on that. My co-panelists, of course, are free to disagree with me and very much might, but I'm just going to say what my point is in general. This is a war, as opposed to if you are, if somebody is detained, somebody is arrested on suspicion of committing a crime, even if you have, it's very likely that they committed the crime. Any civilian, they're entitled to due process. That's part of what a rights protecting state does. A war is something you never, it's a situation you never want to be in. And if you're in it, you were forced into it. And in this case, we know how Israel was forced into it. Was forced into it by savages invading the country and committing the worst atrocities imaginable, live streaming themselves because they knew that their population, their side in the war, appreciates the worst atrocities being committed. They took back hostages and continued and continue to torture and abuse them. So anybody who is a part of that war effort uh, does not have the rights of a citizen or a civilian during peacetime who is accused of shoplifting or murder or anything in between. They have a right to a bullet in the head. The only reason to keep them alive is to get information out of them. How that information is gotten out of them, I don't care. I like seeing the results of that information. I like, for example, seeing the rescue operation a couple of months ago when Israelis knew where some of the hostages were being held, rented an apartment in the building next door, lived there for a month as Palestinians, and eventually, with overwhelming firepower, Israel went in and rescued those 4 hostages and brought them home alive. Now, again, what kind of things you need to do to the people involved in the atrocities of October 7th or in holding the hostages in order to achieve such a result? Let me repeat, I don't care. But my co-panelists might. So welcome to the reality show. I am going to go, Jonathan, you were here yesterday, so I'm going to go to you last, even though you live in Israel. I'm going to go to Anders first. Anders, your thoughts on this situation and on my long intro. Yeah.
Well, I largely agree with you, Rossi. I mean, I keep uh, reiterating the fact that Hamas started all of this, and we must not forget that. And Israel is at war and should win this war with any means necessary. Now, I feel that I have a lack of context in the sense that I couldn't find anywhere the facts. I mean, I saw the accusations of sexual assault, but I didn't see anywhere, and it could just be me, what exactly this person had been accused of, what was the background, what was the context, what had he been doing in the war, etc., etc. So, I don't think we have the full situation in that sense to judge, and obviously now the investigation will hopefully conclude what happened. Now, where I may disagree a little bit with you, Razi, is that I think Israel, and again, this is not really this particular case, but in general, I think Israel, just like the US, just like any other Western nation involved in a conflict like this, should hold itself to a higher standard than the savage enemy, if you like, because I believe that that is something that is paying off in the long term with civilian populations, et cetera, et cetera. And just for our own sake, I think we're better than that. If it now turns out that they went too far, whatever too far means in this situation, in the interrogation and something, because obviously the whole subject of interrogation, of torture, etc. There are huge gray zones. I mean, we discussed it was discussed when with the U.S. and with the detainees at Guantanamo. We had the Abu Ghraib event in Iraq a number of years ago, etc., etc. So it's a very difficult subject, and I'm by no means an expert on it. But my bottom line is, I think that obviously these soldiers, I think they should get a fair trial, but we should Israel and we should hold ourselves to a higher standard.
So actually, I said I would go to Jonathan last, but Jonathan, if you don't mind, because maybe Jonathan knows more of the details.
Mhm.
Again, there's a
Yeah.
limit to how many details would be known to any of us because this is a military situation.
I mean, it's been reported as these detainees were raped by the soldiers. But Jonathan, what you described to me was that this was what was more as could be described as aggressive interrogation.
Yeah, so I'll try to give some background really. So what happened was there was a report. One of those murderers, detainee is very nice, but he's a murderer, a guy with a lot of blood on his hands. He was hospitalized after he was interrogated, and the report that the hospital released said that there were signs of rape, of sexual abuse, and that has caused an interrogation to start. And what happened, what caused the outrage was that these soldiers were arrested by their own fellow soldiers who were dressed in masks. They stormed into the military base and they took them very aggressively, all 9 of them. And that is not how the outrage was, how these soldiers were treated as an enemies, essentially. That is what caused the outrage. Now it's not clear yet what really happened. It's still under investigation, but yeah, what I alluded to, one of the ways that could have resulted in this report was the interrogation method. It could be that remember, these are long interrogations where they try to get information out of these murderers. It's difficult, and the stories that these guys tell you are very hard to take in. So one of the ways they do it, they put like a kind of a pipe, very uncomfortable, as a chair. They sit on a pipe, and that is very uncomfortable, and they have to do that for hours. And I think one of the reasons why the thing could have happened, still we're not clear on it, is because of that showed the signs of rape, and indeed he was hospitalized, so he was probably not very well treated, but that was a method of interrogation, and arguably he deserves that. I don't know all the information, but this guy has a lot of blood on his hands, a lot of rape, a lot of really, really bad things. So I sympathize with Razi's lack of sympathy towards him, but I agree that there is a problem that when soldiers disobey, soldiers have to obey the orders unless those are really immoral orders. So that's what caused the outrage, and what followed was a break-in to the base near Beersheba, where all these murderers are being held, thousands of them. And it was a protest against the way they were treated. There were parliament members involved, all from the party of Ben-Gvir, the radical right-wing people, calling these soldiers heroes, and they shouldn't be treated like that. So that was, and I would add, the most eerie thing about this is not only the way our soldiers were treated, but also how easily this majorly important base was broken into. And when we think about October 7th, what happened was the fence was broken unexpectedly, and they stormed in. And one could very easily imagine this very same base being broken into, not by extreme right-wing people, but by Hamas people, by people from the West Bank, which is not too far away. There are people in the city of Rahat, which is a Bedouin city, where they hid Gazans in October 7th. So they have friends there, which is only 20 minutes away. So one could imagine something like that happening. And that is very scary, which is why I wanted to bring this topic up from the first place. And if I may, one more thing about this unit, the unit that was arrested, most of this unit was arrested. This is a unit called Force 100. And the reason they are called Force 100 is the number in Israel for 911 is 100. You call them when there's trouble. And they are not there when watching over the murderers in real time, but rather they are being called when there's trouble. And now they have taken away these soldiers that are supposed to be there for when there is trouble. And so there's less security there. And those are all reservists also, which is another thing that caused outrage. These are people who have served for 10 months now straight in the war. They suffered the deaths of their loved ones. They're going through really, really hard times. And that is what the outrage is about. The way we are treating our best soldiers, the reservists. But there's more to discuss.
Reservists, meaning they had already served for 3 years. They, started their life and everything, and they were plucked out of their life, when this war started, and, haven't returned since. All right, I have a lot to say, but Jonathan, did you have anything to add?
Dr. Peikoff, on one of his podcasts, had talked extensively about torture in interrogation. And I definitely would encourage our audience to go back and listen to a bit of what he said. I mean, the headline of this story, and Yonatan, I appreciate you bringing it up because there's a lot of different facets of this story, a lot of different elements. I think the headline is going to be Israeli soldiers rape prisoners. That seems to be the headline, of course, to disparage Israel. And, as we've all pointed out, the facts are still coming out, and it's still being, determined. And look, I can imagine a scenario in which people who, as Yonatan, as you pointed out, are giving up their everyday lives to go have to serve in this very dangerous situation, to be in war. It's I can't imagine what that's like, to literally have your life be in a line of fire like that, and to have these, these people in your grasp, to know that they have information that they could give up. So, I mean, look, it's a very difficult situation. Hamas is to blame for 150% of it. But if there were some lines crossed, if some people did things which were criminal and were against policy, they, I think, should be held accountable. But the point is that it's Hamas's policy to rape people. It's Hamas's policy to target people, to physically assault them, to put them on the back of a Jeep and drag them through the city, and everyone dancing around in their bodies. I mean, this is what Hamas does by policy. So if there's one or two bad apples amongst all of these heroes, and again, we don't even know that, amongst all these servicemen and women who under the fog of war, if you will, have crossed the line, they should be held accountable, but not the military writ large.
Anders, I want to just address a point that you said about, Israel should hold itself to a higher standard. Israel's higher standard is it doesn't start wars, and it doesn't go around doing the kind of things that Hamas does. And it has a military for the purpose of defending its citizens while they live their life, rather than building military capabilities just for the purpose of killing others. But within that, once you are forced into war, yeah, the purpose is to end it as quickly and as decisively as possible. And what has to be done to any of the soldiers, if we want to call it that, of the enemy, especially when it's again terrorists who chose this path, is to me that's a
Like the minute they, in my opinion, the minute they got on the back of that motorcycle or paraglider thing with their little bomb or whatever type of weapons and went in and attacked, that was it. The choice was made. They, in my opinion, forfeit all rights. It's not that they can turn around and say, "Oh, I'm a prisoner. You know, I deserve this and that." It's like you violate, in my opinion, you forfeit all of your rights when you attack in such a bloodthirsty manner. You know, what right do they have as a human being? You know,
Anders.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think they have any rights, but I still think that I think it's tactically sound or strategically sound to hold ourselves to a higher standard because we are not like them. Now, when you're in the heat of the moment, I totally understand. Probably several of these people who were doing or who were interrogating these people, I'm pretty sure they have relatives and friends who either died or were injured or were raped in this. So of course, I mean, if I were in their shoes, I mean, I would to restrain yourself not to do what you want to do is a heroic effort, if you like. But I still think that an argument can be made for that.
well, I'm just going to say, Israel does. It is not IDF policy to sexually assault anyone. So they hold themselves to some pretty amazing standards. And Razi, you've argued whether it's, you know, not targeting civilians, is that a higher standard or lower standard, but certainly physical abuse of prisoners and sexual abuse. I'm not in the IDF, I haven't served, but that is not their policy. That is Hamas's policy. That is what they train these kids to do.
Yeah, and I mean, you said it earlier. If something comes out of this investigation that there was some criminal behavior, yeah, they should be held responsible for it. But you know, I hope there's a really high bar for that.
So, yeah, Jonathan, I want to address something you were saying before, because you said, you know, soldiers disobeying orders is a problem, and there I completely agree. But there's a very serious problem that soldiers in Israel and everybody else is aware of, which is these terrorists can murder as many people, can rape, you know, can do whatever they want, and they know, unlike an Israeli citizen who gets arrested for murder or rape or anything and will not see the light of day, at least for a very long time, they might be released, you know, in the next round of hostage deals. So this is something that is known to Israeli soldiers and causes a very problematic kind of clash there. So yeah, your thoughts on that and anything else you wanted to comment on.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, and one of the things they used to do, I've been told, is to release one of these soldiers, because it's really hard to find evidence on it. If you're talking about an individual case, it's very hard to prove, let's say you're having a court, that this Hamas fighter actually did what you're claiming to be, because there are so many different cases. There are no witnesses, right? They killed all the witnesses. So it's problematic to prove. So one of the things they used to do was to release them to the battlefield and leave like an AK-47 on the floor. And then the moment they pick it up, a sniper shoots them and kills them on the spot. That's something we used to do. Now with the social media and everything, it's much less apparent, unfortunately. One thing that we did not mention, and I think is probably the most critical element to this, is we shouldn't have been here. We shouldn't have been 10 months into this war.
With all these prisoners.
Yeah, we should not have kept them alive for so long, and the war shouldn't have been taken so long. We wouldn't have this problem of 10,000 elite Hamas fighters inside our country right now, 1 hour away from Tel Aviv, and we wouldn't have the 13 Druze kids murdered. We wouldn't have any of that. So the problem is first of all a strategic problem of Israel's inability to think long term. What is the solution? How we are going to achieve this, and to act on that strategy of they should have ended it weeks after October 7th, not 10 months. And it's very unclear what will happen. Probably we'll have more deaths coming now with Hezbollah and Iran and everybody else joining to the party now. So it's a mess, and it is Israel's responsibility. It is Israel's fault that we are here now, that Israel has not been as aggressive as it should have been.
Jonathan.
Me? I mean, look, Yonatan is living there, and it's so easy to opine from, relatively safe America. He lives in this actual situation. I mean, it's appalling to me that it has gone on so long. When you see, especially the advanced technology that Israel has. I mean, you guys covered this story yesterday about the attack, this killing of this Hamas individual, or this Hamas bigwig, if you will. Like, they can pinpick these people out with a missile down to just a couple feet. So we have the technology, and it's not only a shame that it's gone so long, but my sense is that the movement towards the peace treaty or truce or ceasefire, it only emboldens people, because Yonatan, as you said, they say, oh, even if I'm taken as a hostage, maybe I get out in the next ceasefire arrangement. Israelis aren't going to treat me so bad. They should be scared of the Israelis. They should be scared as hell of going in with guns and missile launchers and murdering innocent Israelis, because they know that Israel is going to attack them and decimate them. But they've been proven to be a paper tiger. I think, to your point, the fact that it's gone on for 10 months has gone on to be a paper tiger. If this happened, assault or sexual assault of prisoners, I'm sorry it happened, but it's not the policy of Israel. That is just not their policy. And in a weird way, to give it breath, I think, is to, I remember at one point Dr. Peikoff being asked about, people always ask him like, well, what about a hermaphrodite, or what about some kind of special situation? And I always felt like he emphasized it is about the kind of the everyday situation, the non-emergency situation. And the everyday situation is that Israel does not participate in those types of atrocities. Hamas does. They started the war, and all of this is on
them. Yeah, sorry, I was getting messages from somebody from Israel. I was worried, and that's it's kind of how the situation is. You get a call or a message from somebody if you're in Israel or have relatives or friends in Israel, and any message or any call gets you worried, and that's been life in Israel forever, but it's been life in Israel much more so since October 7th. Yeah,
You have to live like that. Like, why should anyone have to live? Again, it makes me think of Dr. Peikoff's, Dr. Biswinger's line that, the threat of force is force. The very fact that you have to live every day wondering, is there going to be another attack? Rockets coming down. Who can be expected to live like that and want to cease fire?
So, Anders, I'll go to you, and then I'll go to some of the interesting stuff we have in the chat.
Yeah, I think what Jonathan has said, that Israel is at fault in the sense that it has dragged out the war, going on 10 or however many months now. I agree with that, but I would also say that we here in the U.S. is at fault as well for not unequivocally supporting Israel from the very beginning here, and pushing for peace negotiations or truce negotiations, whatever type of negotiations. So I would be interested in hearing your thoughts on the fact that just let's say the imaginary situation that Israel would have had US's full backing from the very beginning, would Israel have prosecuted this war a lot faster, or would the fact that the hostages are still there have put a damper on the aggressiveness of Israel?
Yeah, it's a great question. The hostage is another whole issue, right? In Israel, people are saying there were voices that we should not even invade Gaza to begin with because of the hostages, and that's one of the things that Hamas expected us to not even invade Gaza. But if the US was a non-issue, what should have happened was complete flattening of anywhere that's relevant in Gaza, without any regard for international laws, protecting civilians, giving them humanitarian aid. So no humanitarian aid, flattening everywhere that's necessary, and then marching forward as fast as possible. And that could have been accomplished in weeks, not in months, not in years. And the same with Lebanon. We have the same, a much bigger problem in Lebanon, where we have, so much firepower on their side. And now Iran, Yemen, all of these parties, if US was behind us, we should have been able to deal with all of them. And that's what should have happened. But instead, we're trying to appease them with we're saying, oh, look, we're so accurate. We're not killing civilians. We're bringing in all these trucks with food and fuel. Look how nice we are. And then the Democrats can say that no, there's no genocide and all that nonsense. If we had the US on our side fully, we would have none of that, and we would have had peace for months now.
Jonathan, I have to jump into what you're describing of, reminds me of Rising. I'm sure you know it better than I remember, but when Miss Rand was asked on Donahue about what should have been done about the hostage being taken, and she said, as I recall, in effect, like, if you didn't go in 2 days later or the next day, it was lost. And that was in the 70s, and we've been lost ever since. That problem, the radical Islamic military problem, has only metastasized since then. You have the quote.
Yeah, so this was from the from a lecture in 1980. So I don't know when in 1980, but it was at least months after the hostages were taken. The question was, what should be the U.S. policy in the Iranian crisis? How should we get the hostages back? And her answer, and I recommend people watch the video. Oh yeah, it was Donahue. Watch the video, because the way she delivers it adds the emphasis. But she says, never to allow the country to get into that situation. It's certainly the fault of our foreign policy, and at present, there is no right course of action. It's too late. If we didn't march with force the first or second day after the hostages were taken, nothing we do after that will be any good, and it will take us years to live it down. I mean, the only error she makes here is it's been decades and we still haven't lived it down. So, yeah.
This reminded me, Yotaton, of what you said, of like, it's been months, and why didn't they march in with overwhelming force immediately with no regard to all of those concerns about civilians, and is this too much, and you're taking your time, and it's as soon as they started giving into that, and that's why you have all these issues.
Yeah, and I also can testify on a first-handed base. I remember when that day in April when Iran launched all these missiles, and I remember, being fearful. You don't know what's going on. You look at the news, you see 300 Iranian drones are on the way. Brace yourself. And then after nothing happens, basically, and everything's been limited, you feel as a citizen of this country, why there was nothing going back to their direction at the same time, and even days and weeks after, there was still nothing. And you feel that kind of how weak we are, how what a shame. Like, I'm unsafe. My God, my country doesn't do anything against those who wanted to kill me. It just feels bad.
And that's why, again, kind of circling back to our topic today of the accusation. It's like, am I concerned about malfeasance among some IDF troops who might have mistreated some prisoners of war? I'm more concerned about the Israeli complete hostages and American hostages still being held. About as you said, Yonatan, I mean, it's like the drones being thrown at Israel day after day after day. It's like an everyday thing to be attacked in Israel. Oh yeah, Iron Dome. But that's not a way to live. That's not a way anyone should have to live.
Yeah. Let's go to Anders, and then I will go to some of the comments in the chat.
No, I agree. That's not a way to live. I mean, we have all the right medicine, right? But there is also an element of wishful thinking, because with the culture we're living in, both Israel and the United States, we are our own worst enemies. There are no external enemies that are as dangerous as the internal strife that we have in both countries, between different factions. And that is ultimately what makes us weak. And our enemies unfortunately see that, and they're sitting back and waiting for it to kind of disintegrate, I guess. Hopefully it won't happen, but it's sad to see.
So we have different types of trolls in the chat. And by the way, Bonnie asked right at the end of the Daily Objective, is it a sign of the times that we're getting mostly trolls in the chat lately? I don't think it's mostly trolls. We still, get the likes to dislikes ratio is something like 95-5, but yeah, sometimes trolls are more vocal, and there are different types of trolls. And the one thing that unites them is that we don't name any of them, even when we read their comments. I'm going to read some of the comments. Somebody here says, and this is somebody who has said similar stuff recently, the ARI should pull the plug until Razi's resignation letter shows up. So first of all, I love it that whenever we do something that people don't like, ARI gets blamed. Basically we have, we can get away with anything. Yeah. The Ayn Rand Center UK is a for-profit company, privately owned 100% by me. So the chances of a resignation letter are not great, but keep commenting. It is great for the algorithm. Christopher, who is of course not a troll, he's a regular and I believe a fan, although I know he disagrees with me on this, says Razi doesn't care about the person suffering. He ought to care about military policy, integrity, ethics, optics, strategy, etc. Yes. Well, I do. Optics less so, because I think mostly because Israel is so obsessed with optics that it favors them over actually doing what's right. In certain cases, this is maybe, let's see, borderline, but there have been cases, the one that I remember very clearly from early on in the war is when they were talking about Al-Shifa Hospital, which we've known for decades is where Hamas's command center is under that hospital. And Israel did a press conference in English showing all sorts of proof that it is a Hamas headquarters, to people who don't care because they support Hamas and will tell their audience whatever they need their audience to hear to get on their side. But in any case, why are you doing a press conference in such a situation instead of, that's where they are, bomb it, and then do the press conference? So yeah, Israel's obsession with that, and again with a bunch of these stuff. Yeah, I care about ethics. My view of ethics is the role of government is very limited, and this is basically what government is for. Other than police and protecting citizens from other citizens where need be, it's protecting you from foreign invaders. So protecting you from foreign invaders means using whatever necessary force when these foreign invaders invade to defeat them and to prevent them from doing it again, which is something that people keep forgetting that needs to be a part of this. This isn't let's win the war and then have another one in a few months or a few years. No, if you win the war, you won't have another one. That's what winning the war means. And yeah,
Yeah, and I just like, it's like, imagine it was your family that was uh, a hostage member, and you're interrogating someone who knew information or could provide information. It's like, how much, Raz would say you don't care about their feelings. Like, it's like, what, you know, why should you care about their feelings? What right do they have to have their feelings cared about in this situation? And it's like, war is ugly, it's terrible, but Israel didn't start it, and Israel has to end it, and has to end it quickly. And stories like this that pop up, oh well, Israel, I think, not give them any energy, not give them any juice. Not That would be my hope.
And there's one more comment here. It says Yaron Brooks says that attacking terrorists that surrender disincentivizes surrender. Yeah, I haven't seen Yaron's show since this happened, but yeah, that's true. But you know what else it disincentivizes? Doing it in the first place. If you know that the suffering you're gonna go through is so horrendous, you might think about not doing it. I mean, we
And
have
for
all
naught,
these,
and for nothing,
huh?
and for nothing.
Yeah.
As long as Israel keeps giving them little achievements. We took on Israel and won. They're training the next group of little jihadists to come try it again.
Yeah, there's always these scenes in Gaza of Israel leaflets an area, it says get out, and then you see kids like tearing up the leaflets and laughing and so on. And there's a reason for that. Like if Israel leafleted an area and said get out and then flattened the area, then the next people won't be laughing. So yeah, Israel has been incentivizing the wrong actions from these people for so long that yeah, showing them that their way will bring them misery is going to disincentivize what they're doing. Jonathan.
Yeah, it's I wanted to add something about the way they treat these prisoners. I was told um he a friend of mine, he was there stationed, and he told me the fruit and the kind of food they're getting. They get the freshest baskets of pink lady apples. You could see the apple is so shiny. It's better than any apple you can get, and it's much better than any apples the soldiers themselves are getting. They are getting all they have phones. They make calls. Are they can do whatever they can talk to whoever they want. They have nice food. We treat them so well, and think about the injustice of that. What state of injustice is that? And when you think about the actions each and every one of these people have committed, and we're giving them apples, let alone letting them continue living, that is an outrage. And I'm outraged that the Israelis are not outraged by that.
I know it's not funny, but the way you said it sounded like Trump doing a commercial for foreign aid. You have the best apples, the best pink lady apples. I don't know. Yeah, maybe we might actually end up hearing that when Trump becomes president, and might not prove to be as good for Israel as people think. Although it'd be very difficult for him to be worse than Biden, at least on this topic. Yes, Daniel, I am saying this in part because I know the Trump supporters in the audience need to need to vent from time to time. Anders.
Yeah, I'm wondering if giving them shiny apples could be part of the integration strategy. No, um, yeah, I know there are sticks and carrots as part of those integration techniques. So that's pretty much all I have to add right now.
Again, I'll just, I wish I had the links, or maybe we'll add them to the chat, but encourage the audience. Dr. Peacock was asked a lot of these questions. You mentioned Guantanamo Bay. I mean, that was a real issue in the US about treatment of soldiers. And as you said, we have people who are responsible for these atrocities. What do we do with them? And and how do we interrogate them? So I definitely encourage people to check out what he said about it. A lot of insight, when it comes to that, his perspective on that. It's it's really what's so frustrating to me is how long this goes on. And it's like we talked about how Israel has progressed since the 1980s. I mean, Miss Rand described Israel, I think, as a semi-socialist or mixed economy. I mean, think about how far they've come in terms of advancement of their economy, inflation, everything. They have grown, but all of these Muslim radicals around them have stayed the same, training next generation upon next generation upon next generation. So, worrying about whether they were interrogated a bit too hard, I think Israel should put that off. It should be of no one's concern.
Yeah, by the way, one of the trolls in the chat says, of course these clowns want Donald Trump to win. Did anybody here say that they want Donald Trump to win? That's the thing. People hear it's a bunch of people hear what they want to hear so that they can express anger about it. But
Please hit us
anyway,
up with the super chat so that if we're fulfilling your wish, your need fulfillment, at least hit us up with $5 so that we can keep promoting the right ideas and change the culture in the process.
yes. By the way, no, trolls don't super chat for the most part, although we did get like a couple of weeks ago, we got a $5 super chat with some anti-Semitic comment, which of course I didn't read, but I thanked them very much for the $5 and told them that we will spend it better than they will. Yeah, so Jonathan, where is this? By the way, I don't know if we talked about the fact that, or if I mentioned the fact that, the breaking into the base is a very, you mentioned it, but it is something very serious, and it's sad to see protesters in Israel, both protesting against this, and the protesters were protesting for a deal, which means protesting about Israel not capitulating enough to Hamas. All of them. Commit violence. This is not, these are not protests, these are riots. And yeah, this is a very, very dangerous sign for where Israel is headed.
Could these terrorists be prison breaked out?
Yeah, of course they could be. Of course they could be. They could be very easily be broken out because they just taken away these reservists who were watching over in case something like that happens. They're taking them into interrogation. So who will stop them now? It's only active duty soldiers. There are a lot of women there also who are constantly being harassed. This is also something we should mention. There are women who are watching over these prisoners, and one of them was sexually harassed by them. And I'm sure there are many, many more such cases. And there was a huge case scandal in Israel where there was a prison guard, a female prison guard, who was essentially pimped for these terrorists to appease them, which is insane. And it's a real story, and you can read about it. It was in a Gilboa prison. It was a huge scandal. And unfortunately, it seems that this judicial system we have is so corrupt that these things continue to happen, and it's awful. It's scary. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, and you know what solves much of this problem, as well as the problem of prisons overflowing, and they would be overflowing. Like if you were actually to arrest every Palestinian terrorist, you would need to build a couple cities of prisons to house them in. What would solve it is if you say, okay, this is a war, we just are going to kill them. You kill them, and then you don't have to deal with that problem. Zoe says, Razi, that was hilarious, but also as a person currently dealing with health issues that make it hard for me to make sure I eat good food regularly, people shouldn't underestimate that. Well, the point with aid to the Palestinians is we shouldn't be giving them food at all, let alone the best pink lady apples. That's the point here. They started a war, and they should suffer whether they are healthy at the beginning of the war or not. Whatever their situation is, they should regret the fact that this war started, and regret it so much that after it's over, they never think of starting another one again. Anders.
That is true, but it's not enough. The only permanent solution to this is to root out Islamic fundamentalism or Islamic fundamentalist terrorism, and that is to take out Iran. And we have mentioned that many times here, and I just don't want us to lose sight of that, because if Iran is taken out, and obviously Israel cannot do it itself, I think it would need the help of the US, but I think that would be the biggest blessing to world peace that we would have seen in 100 years, because that would, number one, send a message to all the other aspiring world powers, and it would, in an instance, just dry up the supplies to all these Iranian affiliates around the Middle East and around the world. So let's not forget about the fact that Iran is is the heart of this.
Yeah, and Jonathan mentioned how, Iran fired 300 rockets and missiles and drones at Israel, and they were shot down for the most part. And the president of the United States called the prime minister during the night, fearing that Israel would do the right thing, and said, "Take the win," as if having Iran shoot at you and only one person was harmed in that is somehow a win. And yeah, Iran is now threatening after the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh on its in its capital, is threatening to retaliate supposedly, which is of course ridiculous, because they started it, and they started it a long time ago. But Israel is still sitting and waiting rather than doing it now. And we know that Israel eventually will do what's necessary if enough Israelis die, because that's what happened with October 7th. They didn't do fully what's necessary, but they did something. And they didn't do fully what's necessary after the 12 kids were murdered in Majd al-Shams a few days ago, but they did something. So Israel waits and counts bodies, and if there are enough bodies, then it does something, and it doesn't do enough yet, which is a very, very vicious, that is the vicious cycle, because Israel can end it and should. Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing, Razi, this long-standing, history, which is tragic, and it's the ideas that motivate that, and I wonder, am I correct that just this last week, Ayatollah Khomeini has promised new attacks on Israel, and this is basically open, seems to be open warfare, and I wonder if Israel, hit military strikes in Tehran, would it be all about, oh, the Iranian people? It's like, at the same time, Israel is being attacked day after day after day, and its soldiers and its people are truly in the line of fire. They have been for decades, and it's just open warfare now, and it's almost seen as a given. That's what I find so offensive, as American. Like, I've said to my partner, like, we're not traveling internationally anymore, because if we get taken somewhere, they're not going to come get me out. America, doesn't matter who it is. I think it's Trump or Biden or Kamala. They're going to let me sit there for months and weeks. They don't want to they don't want to upset the Arab street. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to hurt any civilians. So, it's the world, unfortunately, that we live in, and it's motivated by ideas. Self-sacrifice is more than anything. It's like the prisoners, the Hamas prisoners, they've got a right, a good apple, a good bed, but the hostages who are still being held, it's almost they're seen as metaphysical fact now. Well, they're just the hostages. Like, they're not. They're real people. They were taken by force, and every day that they're not home is an affront to anyone who even mouths that they care about freedom.
Yeah, yeah, and the fact that what Rand was talking about in 79 is something we see not just dealing with terrorists. I mean, we had the great news that Evan Gershkovich was released today, the Wall Street Journal reporter held in Russia, but that was after 491 days. And yeah, I think I mean, if you live in America, do you really need to go anywhere else? It's pretty awesome place. But yeah, so I understand your fear. Thank you, Loresetto, for the super chat. Loresetto says non-troll super chat. We always appreciate those. By the way, that troll super chat we got a couple of weeks ago was the first troll super chat we got in over 3 years. So yeah, it's not a regular occurrence. Thank you, Zoe, for the super chat. Thank you, Loresetto, for another super chat. Loresetto says slightly larger non-troll super chat, even better. All right, Jonathan, parting thoughts.
I just don't understand why sit for an hour and watch a show that you don't like just to write mean comments. I don't understand what's fun about that. Why
It's
don't you just
activism. They're changing the world in favor of Hamas. Everybody here is already converted by these by the trolls. So, that's why.
I see. Okay. Well, parting thought is I hope that we will learn from this. I hope that the way we are conducting our prisons will be changed. Unfortunately, it's unlikely. I hope they will do what had to be done months ago, which is to eliminate all of these murderers who are now on our land. We just have to do that. I don't think any of these people should go on living. And we have to remember this has been a part of the strategy. Sinwar was in Israeli prison. He knows the system in and out. And this was all part of the big plan. And so long as we're letting them go on, we're playing into his hands. He has a plan for them. And as I said, it's a big danger. They could be released, and we should pay attention to that.
Yeah, I just want to quickly also correct you. The regular trolls, it's not an hour, it's 90 minutes a day. They are here for the Daily Objective and the reality show every day. On weekends, we're only here for 30 minutes. So I think the trolls, have some trouble on the
You know
weekend.
what?
But
I'll
yeah,
just say, I'll just say, I think trolls are good. I mean, think about Nikos, who was probably a troll for some Marxist bullshit back when he was a kid. And the more
no,
people hear about Ayn Rand, the better. The more people are exposed to her ideas, the better. So,
Nikos was an intellectual. He still is, but he was a Marxist intellectual. So, he wouldn't. I don't think he would, write like a four-word insult that isn't, even those four words are not grammatically correct and don't form an actual sentence. Yeah, Nikos, yeah, he's not a good example. But look, if any of these trolls want to learn objectivism, I recommend the Ayn Rand University. If they want to learn grammar, I recommend Leonard Peikoff's course on grammar. So, there's always hope. Um, Thank you, Frank, for the super chat and for opening up a big can of worms here. Why is Muslim Algeria supporting a trans boxer? I also wondered about that. So first of all, it's not a trans boxer, right? It's somebody who was born, somewhere not clearly one gender or another. From what I understand, it is a very weird situation. The whole fact that we are even that this is an issue that people are taking seriously in our time, that let's separate sports competitions for men's competitions and women's competitions, and then let people self-identify as women so they have easier opponents is shocking to me, and I don't know how people get away with it. And yeah, that's a
I'll just say, Razi, I don't think it's so surprising. I think both are on the same side, really, of mysticism and irrationalism. And it's really not that surprising. I think religion fundamentally is very much aligned with postmodernist thought. They just happen to agree on some points, but their foundation is the same. They're both subjectivist. They both think that you can change reality only if you think that, if you pray. So I see a lot of alignment there, actually.
Yeah, and by the way, in Muslim Iran, I know that homosexuality is a crime punishable by death, but you can be believed to be born a man in a woman's body or vice versa, and they do actually have sex change operations. So yeah, I wouldn't look for logic in religion. Anders.
Well, this took an interesting turn, I must say. So if I may just bring us back to the topic at hand, and I just keep reiterating that whatever these minor infringements are that the Israeli army or the IDF forces have done, never forget the fact that Hamas started this, and they are to blame for every direct and indirect um, casualty in whatever form they come for this. So let's always keep that in mind.
Jonathan, I should say Frank says that this person was born male. Okay, I should read the story some more, and maybe we'll do a whole show about it, but I doubt it. Jonathan.
Well, definitely see Dr. Peikoff on his perspective on the trans issue as well on his podcast as well. But I'll just say that we value our audience, particularly the subscribers, the monthly subscribers on YouTube, the subscribers at the website at Capitalist at Ayn Rand Center UK, because you're keeping us going. You know, as Razi said, we present, what is it, 90 minutes of objectivism inspired programming 5 days a week, and then 2 more on the weekends. So we are the biggest producer of programming inspired by objectivism, and we want you to pick up Ayn Rand, read some of her books, listen to some of the Donahue lectures, discover what all we have discovered, that this is a philosophy for living on Earth. And it has a lot to say about the situation in Israel, so it's why we're focusing on it, and we appreciate your support. And I have a new book out as well, written with Dr. Peikoff, called Can You Really Love a Dog? And I'd appreciate if you take a look as well. It's at Amazon.
And before Anders and Jonathan tell us where we can find them, because this is now Frank has changed the topic of the show for the last few minutes. Well, some of us accepted the change, the transition, if you will, to a new topic. Gigi says you can't change your sex anyway. I agree. One of the trolls says Nikos is a trans apologist. I will inform him that you are reprimanding him for that. Yeah, Anders, where can people find more from you?
I'm on Substack, andersingemarsson.substack.com, and you can find my book, Think Right or Wrong, Not Left or Right, on every Amazon outlet around the world. The third edition is available for pre-order, the ebooks, so I appreciate any support you can give me there.
Jonathan, where can people find more from you?
Our dear viewers may find me on Substack, philosophyIneedit.com. Link is in the description.
And the Ayn Rand Center UK is also on Substack, and our first article is coming. I know I said yesterday that it would be on yesterday. Today, I'm going to say that about today, and it will be on today unless something happens. That article is from Marco. We also have an upcoming article from trans apologist Nikos. It's not a trans apologist article. Yeah, make sure you subscribe to that. We will have some free content. We will have exclusive content for paid subscribers. Ayn Rand Center UK members at the gold level and above get a free subscription, and Ayn Rand Center UK YouTube members at the inner circle level also get a free subscription. Ayn Rand Center UK YouTube members at the inner circle level also get the live stream of James Valiant's amazing course on the Constitution, which is also for members at the Reardon Medal and Midas Mulligan levels. Yeah, this course is something else. We will have some clips available at some point so that people can see what they're missing out and maybe consider upgrading. Yeah, so that next session starts in 1 hour. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks guys for joining me. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks.